The 9th of May, a section of Patel Solai Dam collapsed and 47 people were killed in the raging water spillage, and the mud buildup. Scores are still missing and many remain displaced. The night tragedy presented a unique challenge to rescue teams and the media crew covering the event. Lekilia Clinic was only 4 weeks old at the time of the tragedy, but was handy in serving tens of victims. Governor Leki Ndenjo even acknowledged Mary Waruguru, one of the staff at the clinic. Mary Waruguru is joining us live with the experience in the middle of the disaster from Nakuru. Let us first listen to Governor Lee's speech there before I speak to her.
Na wakati ulikuja, ya muhimu ni kujiuliza vile tukafanya ili tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba tumeweza kupunguza hasara ama vifo ambavyo tungeweza kuona. Na mimi niseme niliweza kupata simu kama mwendo wa saa 2:30, na wakati tulipata simu ya kwanza hatukudhani kwamba ni mkasa utakuwa kubwa. Tulidhani ni damu tu ya kawaida, si watu wengi, lakini kupitia kwa mjumbe na MCA na viongozi wa hapa, kufikia mwendo wa saa 4 ilikuwa wazi kwamba ni mkasa ambao tujaona tena, na tuliweza kufika hapa. Lakini ya kwanza ni wakati maji ilipoanza kuteremka, stima yote iliangushwa, kwa hivyo kulikuwa na giza. Barabara pia mahali ambapo tungepita na gari ilikuwa uwezi ukapita, kwa hivyo ilikuwa ni giza, watu wangeweza kuja. Lakini niseme kwa niaba ya wote, the community of Solai did things that no one else could imagine. In darkness, with no official coordination, they were able to go up to 1 kilometer down in the night to be able and search for the victims. And they did a marvelous job, carrying them for about 900 meters to be able to put them to the ambulances and the vehicles that were there. And among the first vehicles to come was the Member of Parliament's vehicle, which ferried many people. And although we are talking of those who perished, I want to assure you, those who survived are many, and we are happy for that.
And speaking about Mary, we have a live host on standby for us in Nakuru. Mary, if you could hear me, good morning. Welcome to the program and congratulations for a job well done. We've seen there your governor himself acknowledging the fact that your clinic came in handy in saving the lives of so many people during that disaster in Solai. First of all, let me begin with this. How was the experience like for you? I'm sure it has been very tough.
It came as a shock. The whole ordeal was very frightening and shocking. And all the victims are being brought to the clinic, so we were not expecting that we'll have so many people being brought to the clinic, leave alone even one person being brought to the clinic. So it was, what we saw that night, it was very frightening and very traumatizing. It's not something I would wish to see again.
Sure. Now, Mary, just give us a background of how your clinic is. I understand that your clinic is about 1 month old. So how many survivors did you receive at that moment in time?
All right, we had about 10 to 15 kids, and adults were around 10 to 15, almost the same number. But I really cannot say that the exact number, what was brought to our clinic. But I would say we were very busy. There were so many people who were brought to the clinic, and we were resuscitating and giving CPR and trying to make everyone stay alive, and then refer them to either Mailikumi or Nakuru Level 5 Hospital. Yeah.
Now, Mary, this morning we're discussing about, covering trauma and the impact it has on journalists, not just journalists, but also rescuers, and health practitioners like yourself. What kind of an impact, has that development left on what kind of an impact has it had on you?
I will say that so many people are really traumatized, especially children and people who lost their loved ones. And I would say some are actually being brought to our clinic every night because they cannot handle the pain and the suffering that they're going through, and you can see that they're actually really traumatized completely. I actually spoke to Red Cross yesterday, and we were requesting if they could actually stay a little bit longer and try and counsel people, because the way like families, they all say that we have to stay with these people, but these people really need professionals to get to them and get to talk to them and counsel them.
Thank you very much, Mary, for a job well done there. Mary is one of the first people who were at the scene of that disaster and helped a lot of individuals there. She was recognized by Nakuru Governor Lee Kinyanjui in his speech that we had played earlier. And this morning, we're going to talk about occupational hazards for individuals, covering traumatic events. For example, what happened in Solai, the risk factors that aggravate those effects, and some suggestions of mitigating those factors. And we have someone who's going to, bring it down for us and, make us understand this subject that so many people don't talk about. We have Dr. Susan Gita with us in studio. Dr. Ari, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And if you look at research, it shows that about 80 to 100% of journalists have been exposed to a work-related traumatic event. That's a very big number, right?
That's very true, because you cover every news.
Yes.
And what happens to journalists, because you have to capture what is going to maybe make an impact, what is going to send a message. So you have to be there. If it's about dead bodies, you have to capture that. If it's about any tragedy, talk of any tragedy. And what happens to journalists, even if they are not the ones affected, say, for example, where we have victims of traumatic incidences, they do experience vicarious PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. And most of them never realize, or some of them do, for those who are exposed or they have read about it. The sad thing is that the journalists are never prepared before, or some of them have never been sensitized that whatever you're going to deal with will make you mentally involved in a very big way, emotionally involved, and in some cases, very spiritual. And what happens at the end of the day, if you do not have psychological debriefing soon after you have covered the news about any tragedy, you accumulate these feelings, you accumulate these emotions. Because we say, who is vulnerable to developing post-traumatic stress disorder? It is anybody who encounters a situation that they have not encountered before, a situation that you least expected, and a situation that is also life-threatening. For example, I've seen journalists covering even situations of war where there are gunshots, but you really want to capture the moment. And what happens at the end of the day when you go back home, after you have handed in your work, your clips, the images start coming back.
They keep on recurring in your mind.
Yeah,
it's not just journalists, I'm sure health practitioners, as much as we take them for granted, they're also human beings and it affects them.
Yeah. And the sad thing about my country at the moment, we are busy trying to amend the Psychologist and Counselors Bill, the act that was passed in 2014, and we haven't even done anything. There is no coordination. You have heard the hidden heroes, one of them talking, that these people need professional support. I feel sad because we have a highly professional staff in this country in the area of counseling psychology who can coordinate professional intervention, because Red Cross does very good work rescuing and providing for maybe psychosocial support in general. But what happens? The woundedness in the minds of these people, the victims, the survivors, those who watched, those who went to rescue, nobody works with them. Like now, Kenya Military Academy even tried to put up a counseling center. But we were in some discussions. Who is also taking care of these rescuers? Because after they have witnessed what they have witnessed, after they have maybe rescued the children or taken in these dead bodies, who is cleaning their mind so that tomorrow they can go on?
Yes.
We also have people who do it over a long period of time. So you not only have PTSD, vicarious PTSD, you also have burnout, and very serious burnout that can take you to hospital.
We're going to talk about the role of organizations, not just the government, the role of organizations, because these are the people we're talking about work for various organizations, be it the media, be it people who engage in, like the Red Cross, for example.
This is it.
So before you come to that, let me engage our very own reporter, Elfas Legat, who covered the Solai Dam tragedy for us. Now, Elfas, if you could hear me, good morning, and perhaps can you tell us how the experience has been like for you? I'm sure you've been telling us a lot about the Solai Dam tragedy, giving us updates on a daily basis. I know this is kind of a unique question. It's very different from the normal questions we normally have for you. Can you perhaps give us the other side of the story? How was it for you? Let me begin from there.
As you rightly put it again, we were in Solai since day one when the tragedy happened. And for real, it is a traumatizing experience, having to engage with people who've had first-hand experience with pain and anguish, some of them escaping death by a whisker. And we have to cover them. We have to tell the story to the whole world, to tell the story to the public. And, having to really engage with these people, tell their side, talk to the officials, talk to Red Cross and the multi-agency that were tasked with a rescue and such mission. It is really, really demanding. It is traumatizing again. But we've had a conversation with Waruguru, who just spoke to us right now. And we understand now it is our job as well to inform the public of what is happening. It was a tragedy of monumental proportions. And yeah, I mean, talking to these people and highlighting their situation, calling on to the leaders, calling on to the whole world to help Solai people, it was traumatizing, but at least highlighting this and pointing out was something that stood out for us, especially the journalists.
Sure. Alphas, one final question. Had it occurred to you at any moment while covering those stories that you felt helpless in a way because you have your camera, your gadgets there, but you don't have the necessary equipments that might come in handy in helping lives there?
Yes, Yusuf, and that calls to question the issue of preparedness, because you are engaging more than 50 people. We're talking about 50 people who've lost their lives. Thousands who've been displaced, people who feel hopeless. It gets to us. We're not immune to this. But we try to tell the story as they are, and trying to engage the different sectors, to engage different stakeholders, calling on the search mission that was coordinated by Regional Coordinator Mongo Chimwanga, to continue the search, airing out what people feel, telling them some feel that people are still missing, calling on to support food and non-food material. And it was overwhelming, having leaders coming to the ground to talk to the people who've been affected. We had Baringo Senator Gideon Moi, we had a number of CSs coming, Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, Eugene Wamalwa for Devolution, Water CS. You would remember also that during the final send-off, the President, His Excellency the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, and his Deputy, William Ruto, coming to condole with the people. But from our perspective now, this really touches on people, yes, but if this can be replicated in ensuring that there is enough preparedness, there are strategies to mitigate tragedies of such nature happening. I mean, that would go a real wrong way, because if a country can set a framework, and even the Senate has instituted a conversation of putting in place a policy to arrest cases of tragedies and ensuring preparedness among the public, that would go a long way. That would go a long way, Yusuf.
Been a heart-rending experience there. Many thanks, Alphas Legat, for that. And let me continue the discussion in studio. Still with me, I have Dr. Susan Gitau, who's a psychologist. Now, Dr. once again, let me quote that research I told you earlier. About 80 to 100% of journalists have exposed or have been exposed to a work-related traumatic event. Now, with that kind of an experience, let's say, for example, I covered the Garissa University attack, and it took me months before, forgetting those images, which are very horrible, I remember. So what is the first step as a psychologist? What is the first step, that you're supposed to take when, you know, a journalist gets to experience such things?
So it's, I also feel it's good for somebody to know when they have become traumatized. There are 4 ways people respond to trauma. One is the re-experiencing, like you said, you had images for a long time. The second one is trying to avoid the whole event. You don't want to talk about it, you don't want to hear about it. The third way, you become hyper-aroused, such that when you hear of it, your body shakes. There's somewhere, we say trauma is hidden within the body, and it's good to scan your body and know where was it hidden. For somebody who gets very angry, sometimes the shoulders ache and the chest. For those who feel it's a lot of heart, you know, because of loss, it's about their stomach muscles. Others, if it's a lot of fear, it goes to their knees. So it's important for people to scan their bodies for trauma. The other one is diminished interest. For example, you loved covering such news. You feel, let them send somebody else, not me. You remember the case of Jimmy Carter and the picture he took of the child that was eaten up by the vulture. You know, later on he committed suicide because he developed PTSD and probably nobody noticed about it. Maybe he didn't even notice. He never sought for help or nobody thought he needed help.
It resulted to suicide, right?
Yes, yeah, it did.
Very sad.
And yet he gave a very good, he gave good information to who needed to see and intervene. But where is your life?
We're going to go into detail of that. And of course, that is Dr. Susan Gitau, is a psychologist. And that brings us to the end of the first part of this program. We're going to take a very short break. But when we return, we're still going to continue with this discussion about covering trauma and the impact it has, not just on journalists, but also health practitioners. Stay with us. We'll be right back.